Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Transformation Thursday. We are grateful and we are excited that you have thought it good to join us once again for another discussion on Transformation Thursday. As always, I'm here with my trusted sidekick, Dr. Chappelle. Welcome, Dr. Chappelle. So, Chris, for the last few weeks, we've been just kind of walking through uh, in essence, the 10 lessons that were learned, if you will, uh, in 2024, and really just bringing those into 2025. And so we talked about lifelong learning. We talked about the value of mentoring. Uh, Today, I want to talk a little bit about the value of our time. The value of our time. Paul says that we ought to pay careful attention to how we walk, valuing our time, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of our time. And then he goes on to say, because the days are evil.
Mhm.
So he says, make the most of our time. The Bible also says that the Hebrew writer says that you ought to exhort one another and encourage one another while it is called today. Really emphasizing the value of time. And then Jesus says that work while it is day, for when night comes, no man can work. And so throughout the New Testaments and uh, the Proverbs, we find that God is constantly highlighting to us or pressing upon us that we ought to value time. And so often, and I'm guilty of this myself, but so often I hear people say that when you ask them what are they doing, they'll say, well, just kind of wasting time.
Mhm.
And I catch myself now because I don't want to have any wasted moments. We ought to structure our lives in such a way that we are valuing each moment. Because what I've discovered is we look around in our society and we see things happening. One thing is for certain, tomorrow is not promised to us. And so each day that we are blessed to have, uh, we ought to value it. We ought to be walking in our purpose, fulfilling our destiny, investing in people, investing in ourselves. And so we ought to value the time that we have. We ought to value the time that we have. And I have intentionally began to try to structure my life in such a way that I am valuing the time. I have been intentional about uh, getting up at a certain time. Before I would just kind of lay in the bed and not that that's anything really wrong with it, but I've been intentional about getting up early, hitting the gym, spending time in worship, uh, calculated, intentional time. Uh, in various areas of my life because I want to value the gift of time. It's a it's a gift that we have been granted, and each moment of it we ought to value. And so I want to just ask you, Chris, and just kind of get your thoughts on uh, the importance of time.
Well, first, I have to identify that time isn't static.
Mm,
That is always it's always moving, and for many, it always feel like it's fleeting. For
mhm,
for some of us, we feel like we don't have enough of it within a
mm,
day.
mhm,
And as you alluded to, that when you have structure, then you probably are going to end up with better performance. But the thing about time is, it's not the same for everything. And
mhm,
here's what I mean by it's not static. If I spend, say, 10 minutes, if I spend 10 minutes being late for an important occasion, a wedding, 10 minutes late
mhm,
for a wedding. It's not the same if I'm waiting 10 minutes in line for a cup of coffee.
mhm,
The value of the experience is
mhm.
much different.
Right.
So I'm saying that to say that our time, when we are focused, we should dispense that time to get the most out of the experience that we have on the time side of life so that we can have a full life.
Mhm, mhm.
Now, if I don't value my time, then it's hard for me to value your time.
Right.
And if I
Right.
don't value my time and your time, then it erodes at our own value, like how we value ourselves, how we see and approach things. So I
Mhm,
think that your first point was extremely important, being that you have to have some structure to it and some purpose, because the structure brings about purpose. What are you doing with the time? Because
mhm,
some people, they may not be necessarily wasting their time, but they may be spending their time on horrible ideas.
mm,
So it's important, if we're not wasting it, then it's also important how we're spending it. Because you often
mhm.
hear people say they spend the time doing certain things. So it's important that we don't waste it, but it's also important how we dispense and spend time in doing things that's meaningful for our lives and for the lives of others.
I like that. And so that I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about uh, our investment in people. You know, one of the things that the Bible says, if you can recall, in Jesus when he sends out the 72, he sends out 72 disciples, if you will, and he said, "I want you to go into the cities." You remember the story? He says, "Don't take nothing with you. Don't take an extra pair of sandals with you. Don't take a cloak with you, and don't literally take nothing with you." And he says, when you enter the city, if they accept you, then you go in with them. And in essence, you invest more into
Mhm.
them. And then he says, but if they don't accept you, you shake the dust off of you from them and you move on. It, his example was that you have to be careful in how you are investing your time into folks that don't want it.
Mhm.
See, sometimes we can want something for people that they don't want for themselves.
Yeah.
Hmm. And I want people to be successful. I want people to walk in their purpose. And I want to help them to get there. But if they don't want that, if they don't want to walk in purpose, if they don't want to fulfill destiny, if they don't want to live a better life, then am I wasting my time investing into them? Jesus would say, dust. Now that doesn't mean, because some people you know want it, but they might not be there yet, right?
Hmm.
And so you spend time in that. But some folks just, you know, they don't want it.
So let me speak to that. All right. So it's like this, because time is valuable and you give and there's an opportunity,
Hmm.
right? The Bible says the moment you hear my voice, harden not your heart.
Right, right. Hmm.
So certain things requires an urgency, a limited time offer. We only have this life for so long. That's a limited
Hmm.
time offer.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what someone do or does with the opportunity is it's on them. Now we only have a responsibility for what we supposed to do,
Hmm.
make the offer. If someone decides to receive that offer, praise God, all the good.
Hmm.
But if they choose to reject it, if they choose to stay where they are, there's no amount of pulling, there's no amount of prying, because some people will stay exactly where they desire or are comfortable being. I'm not gonna say they necessarily desire, but they're comfortable being. Moving and stepping out in a timely manner and moving forward requires effort and action.
Hmm.
And as a Eastern proverb once said, if I give a man one fourth and he do not go out to retrieve the other three, I shouldn't teach him again. Essentially, dust it off, move on. Because a part of this, you have to want it too. I can't want it more than you want it. So, or I can't want it for you more than you want it for you. So, yeah, that's a part of the game. Not
Hmm.
everybody will pass the class. That's part of the business.
That's well stated. That's well stated. The hope is that people will catch on. People will want better. You will want uh, to invest in yourself to be better, uh, to walk through the transformative process or the transformation process that God has us all on. And that process requires an investment in ourselves. I shared a song with you earlier.
Hmm.
Uh, powerful song. It has become. I listen to it almost every day now because of the wording in it, and uh, the writer simply is saying, "I had to." What he's really saying, I had to invest in myself
Hmm.
to be better. I had to use my time wisely, investing in the things that really matter. investing in family, investing in me being better and getting better, investing in living the life that God would have me to live,
You
putting the
know,
proper time in.
yeah. So, you know, a part of that is like for like taking ownership of of that potential. It's
Mhm,
taking time to be around or in the atmosphere that would nurture that growth, right? So sometimes we have people in the cycle say, okay, they're not yeah, they're not there yet. You mentioned that just before. But you
mhm,
know, if you stay around long enough and you
mhm.
keep just being in the atmosphere, oh, through some at some point in time, it's like, okay, it's gonna click, stuff gonna move. But sometimes it's just a matter of just taking the time to put yourself in the atmosphere so that you can, you know, have the confidence, the growing confidence to make that move.
Right.
But that's still a part of investment. And that's still a part of desire. And
Mhm.
as people are on those on the fringe, we have to make sure that we continue to invest in them. And matter of fact, I mean, if we're all honest, we have some area of life that we too have to push in. Like you mentioned earlier about the way that you should restructure the way that you associate your time with waking up, right? No, you know, before it was like, okay, I'll lay there for a bit, but now it's like, okay, I need to restructure this thing. And I'm certain that when you first did it, it wasn't the most easy thing. The first day wasn't the easy thing. The second day, nor the third. But if you just keep on just like, okay, I get up a bit early. Okay, I'll try this a little bit more. I keep showing up. Showing up is half the battle, but showing up is also associated with the time to take to do those things that may seem simple but yield great impacts.
Right, right. And, for me, at the beginning of the year, I wanted to, uh, as I reflected on 2024 and when thinking about 2025, I wanted to uh, really be intentional. And I recognize that so often, and this was, for me, so often I would lay in the bed. I would get up right in just enough time to hop in the shower, get dressed, and rush off to work. But what I realized then when I do that, I was not spending the time that I wanted to spend in worship, in listening for his voice. And then I sped off in my day, and I still, because my day is so busy, didn't have time to plug him in. And when I did not have time to plug him in, I was not prepared for the day. Because when you have time to plug him in, when you make time to plug him in, he helps you to prepare or to be prepared for what your day will look like. Uh, and I just realized that when I do that, I'm preparing. I'm spending time with him. And I also realized that I wanted to work out. I wanted to work on the physical self as well. But if I go through the whole day and at the end of the day, I'm tired.
Hmm.
I'm spent. And so I don't have the energy to go then and work out. And so not only did I not spend time with him, so my spiritual self is not where it needed to be. But I also didn't work out, so my physical self wasn't where it needed to be. And then there's a level of stress that comes along with all the things that you are holding that also becomes attacked and vulnerable. And so the spending time in those spaces and restructuring my time allowed me to reposition and to come into better alignment.
I'm gonna put it like this. It's one of the things I wrote some time ago, and this is what I'm hearing you say right now. You value the relationship with God. In valuing that relationship with God, you found a better value for yourself.
Mhm,
And essentially what you did, and this is what I wrote, before you get started, you have to own your day before you lease your time.
mhm.
And granting that and gaining that ownership, you understand you put everything else in perspective. So good on you. God bless you for it.
Ah, that that's a close right there, Chris. We're gonna close right there. Owning your day, owning your own time. I love that right there. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna grab that one right there. I think that's powerful. Owning your own day, owning your own day by valuing the time that you have been afforded. That's our thought for this Transformation Thursday. I will own my own day and value the time that I've been blessed with. See you next time on Transformation Thursday.